Hello everyone, Ryan here. I recently listened to the audiobook version of Exit West by Mohsin Hamid. I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. But I gotta say, this audiobook, it definitely grabbed my attention. Of course, it is read by the author himself. I wanted to read the actual physical book, but unfortunately my local library didn't have any available copies, and I didn't want to wait for too long, so hence I chose the audiobook version. And not only do I like the author's writing style, but I also like the way he reads this, because to me it's kind of like, he put inflections on the right words, and he was able to, for me, he was able to pull me into this kind of somewhat magical realism kind of thing. And essentially it's about these two characters, Nadia and Said. That's actually how the author pronounces the name Said. First I thought it might have been like Saeed, but yeah, in the audiobook he pronounces it as Said. So Nadia and Said, and they're living in this like country where I don't believe it's actually ever really said what country they're living in, but I would assume it's in some kind of Middle Eastern country, or possibly another country close to the Middle East. And so pretty much they're struggling to deal with the fact that their homeland, I guess you could say, is on the verge of civil war. And of course it's around this time that they meet each other at school, at university, college, and they begin this love affair. And at first, I guess, they keep it kind of hush hush, and because of their upbringing, they've been taught not to flaunt, I guess, your relationship in public, and which is one of the things I do know about when it comes to Middle Eastern culture, or rather, I would say Muslim culture, or, I mean, for the most part, a lot of families, because, I mean, my only experience with any kind of Muslim culture, or, any kind of culture that hails from the Middle Eastern part of the world, is I used to have this roommate, and he was from Afghanistan. His name was Shamim, and he was a really cool guy. I mean, but I remember when he first moved into the place I was staying at, he told me a lot about his culture, and of course he was also Muslim. So he told me a lot about what went on in a Muslim household and all that. So that's why I know about, I guess you could say, in this audiobook, when I was listening to it, there were certain things that the author brought up, and which I was actually familiar with only because of the fact that I had, at one point, had a Muslim roommate. So it wasn't too unfamiliar for me. So I don't know, I guess maybe like, for those who aren't too familiar with Muslim culture, or, Muslim family dynamics, it might, some of the stuff in this audiobook or book might come off as like kind of maybe a little too unfamiliar. But overall, I feel like it's not really that difficult to comprehend. I mean, mostly because essentially it's just, these two characters, Said and Naid, Nadia and Said, eventually, after being tired of having to put up with all this Civil War talk, and then also too, at the same time, eventually bombs start going off all around their neighborhood, and they start to hear these weird rumors about that doors, these weird doors, not really weird, but supposedly, like, for whatever reason, people start to, when they open just a regular looking door, and during certain times when they open it, I guess this like portal or something appears, and it's through this portal that when they step through it, they're immediately sent to a different country, of course, much more towards the western part of the world. Hence the title, I guess, Exit West. And of course, like Nadia and Said, they're reluctant to believe this until I guess one day that, they come upon a portal after opening a particular door, and they decide to go through it because, they're fed up with having to put up with all these bombs going off around them constantly and constantly fearing for their lives. And so, yeah, they, even though they were reluctant because I guess, they didn't want to leave their families behind and their friends. But I guess, it kind of makes sense that, they decided to go through this door portal anyways. And then, so when they emerge on the other side, I want to say, I believe they end up somewhere in England or London, some kind of beach or something. That's one of the things that was interesting about this author's writing style. Even in the audiobook, even when he's describing certain scenes, it's more like I don't know how to explain it. He's good at describing certain scenes, but he describes them in such a way that, it's not just like for most of us, like if somebody were to ask me to describe, I don't know, say like a forest, my initial explanation would probably be something along the lines of, yeah, there's a lot of trees and they're green, tall, they smell pretty interesting, or something like that. But this author, he'll describe something like that, but much more in a slightly more poetic kind of way, but also not so descriptive that it turns you off. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would say his writing style just reminds me just a very little bit somewhat like Ernest Hemingway. I only say that because I know Hemingway, his writing style was more like spare and to the point, not too descriptive, just really like bare bones kind of writing. So that's what this author's writing style reminds me of, except that he couples that with certain scenes in which he describes certain emotions, like the emotions of he describes what Nadia and Said are both thinking, but he does it in such a way that makes you really, I guess, empathize with these characters. Yeah. I don't know how else to describe it. It's very interesting writing style. And of course, the rest of the story pretty much goes on to explain, this refugee state, the state of refugees, pretty much. Because eventually both Nadia and Said, they come upon various, I guess, refugee settlements, and they meet a lot a lot of different people from a lot of other countries, and even though they start to miss their home country, at the same time, they're pretty much, just really, I guess I don't want to say enjoying. I guess Nadia enjoys the experience. She ends up enjoying the experience a lot more than Said, because she experienced, I guess you'd say, she definitely experienced a lot more oppression in her home country than Said did. And so she ends up enjoying this experience far more than him. Ends up, I guess, trying to befriend other refugees, and, more than him. Eventually, Said, towards the end, Said, he just wants to return. He wants to go back home. Of course, Nadia doesn't. And then, I don't want to say much more, other than, the ending. The ending is good. I guess, ultimately I give it 4 stars. I give it 4 stars on Goodreads. And that's primarily because I do feel like it's well written. And then, of course, the audiobook is well read too. I like the author's writing style. I like the way he describes certain things. And I also like that it's about immigration and refugees. It offers a very interesting glimpse into the lives of refugees, like what happens to people when, they're forced to leave their countries, not because they want to leave, but because, if they were to stay, then, the likelihood of them being killed, if they were to stay, it's almost guaranteed that they would be killed. And of course, obviously, I know, not a lot of people, I feel, I know for me personally, I have no idea what that's like. I can only read about it and try to imagine what that would be like. But I feel like still, even then, it wouldn't really, I wouldn't be able to fully comprehend, I guess, grasp what that's like, unless I were to experience that for myself. And I'm pretty sure the same could be said about a lot of people in this country, just in the United States alone. For most of us, we have no idea what it's like to, to suddenly have to leave our homes, our homeland, or home country, wherever it is that we were raised in, whatnot, and, not essentially be forced to voluntarily leave. It's an interesting thing. I guess mostly, of course, the only one thing I didn't like about this was that it's not like it is an interesting glimpse at the lives of refugees, but I would have to say I don't believe it to be a very thorough glimpse, or but obviously, obviously it's not, because it is a fictional story. I guess, based in some kind of reality. But yeah, it's not very thorough, and I feel like this wouldn't really be like one of those books or audiobooks that can be, I guess, cited or referenced too much when it comes to the topic of immigration and refugees. But it is still, it is still worthy of being referenced and cited. But yeah, just ultimately, it's, again, all I can say is it's an interesting glimpse at the topics of immigration, the lives of refugees, but not thorough. So, but it's still very interesting nonetheless. So yeah, I don't know what else to say, without spoiling the rest of it, but I do give it 4 out of 5 stars. And that'll do it for my review of Exit West by Mohsin Hamid. Yeah. Again, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. So, thanks for watching. As always, till next time, don't forget, keep it real, keep on rocking, and peace.